Have you ever witnessed it? A moment of profound and undeniable difficulty, a crushing failure, a heartbreaking loss, a period of immense and grinding struggle, met not with tears, not with complaint, but with a quiet, calm, and utterly unnerving smile. It is a strange and disorienting sight, a smile that does not seem to fit the circumstances. It is a smile that does not deny the pain, but seems to, in some mysterious way, transcend it. In that moment, you are in the presence of one of the most complex, most misunderstood, and most psychologically fascinating of all human archetypes, the person who smiles through their challenges. You have likely looked at this person with a sense of profound and disorienting confusion. You see their smile as a sign of their madness, of their denial, of a deep and pathological disconnect from the reality of their own suffering. You may feel a flicker of anger, of a sense that they are not taking their own pain, or the gravity of the situation seriously. You see their calm in the heart of the storm, and you diagnose it with the easy, pre-packaged labels our culture provides. They're just putting on a brave face. They're emotionally repressed. They're a Pollyanna, a naive optimist. You, a citizen of a world that has taught you that suffering is a problem to be fixed, a state to be lamented, a form of victimhood to be publicly performed, cannot comprehend their strange and heretical cheerfulness. But what if you are wrong? What if their smile is not an absence of feeling, but a presence of something far more powerful? What if their calm is not a sign of their disconnect from reality, but of a terrifyingly intimate and profound connection to a deeper, more resilient layer of it? What if they are not the ones who are in denial, but are, in fact, the only ones who are truly seeing the great, tragic, and ultimately meaningful game of the human condition? The brutal and uncomfortable truth is that the person who smiles through their challenges is not always a deluded fool or a repressed robot. Sometimes they are a warrior. Sometimes they are a philosopher. Sometimes they are an alchemist of the soul. Their smile is not a mask, it is a weapon, it is a shield, and it is a profound and sacred statement about the nature of their own unconquerable spirit. To understand the psychology of the person who smiles through their challenges, we must first understand that this is not a monolithic category. This is a vast and complex landscape of the human soul, and it is populated by many different kinds of inhabitants. And for many, the roots of this strange and paradoxical reflex lie in a deep and primal wound. This is the person who grew up in an environment where the expression of negative emotion was not just unhelpful, it was dangerous. They are the child of the narcissistic parent, for whom the child's sadness was an inconvenient and narcissistic injury. They are the child of the emotionally barren and neglectful parent, for whom a display of vulnerability was met with a terrifying and annihilating indifference. They are the child of the positive thinking parent, who learned that any expression of pain or of struggle was a sign of a moral and spiritual failing. For this child, the natural, instinctual responses to pain, crying, seeking comfort, expressing vulnerability, were not just ineffective, they were a strategic liability. They learned, with the uncanny perception of a creature whose survival is on the line, that their pain was a problem, a weakness, a thing to be hidden at all costs. And in the desperate creative laboratory of their own young psyche, they stumbled upon a strange and brilliant piece of psychological alchemy. They learned to smile. Their smile in this context is not an expression of joy, it is a form of armor. It is a sophisticated and highly effective defense mechanism, a mask that is forged in the fires of a profound and terrifying trauma. It serves a series of crucial and often unconscious survival functions. First, it is a form of appeasement. The smile is a universal primate signal of non-aggression. The child who smiles in the face of a parent's anger or disappointment is, in a very real and primal sense, saying, "I am not a threat. Do not harm me. I am okay." It is a desperate and brilliant attempt to de-escalate a potential conflict and to manage the emotional state of the powerful and unpredictable adults around them. Second, it is a form of self-erasure. To show one's pain is to have a self, to have a need, to take up space in the emotional economy of the family. The smile is a way of becoming invisible, of having no needs, of being fine. It is a tragic and profound act of self-abandonment, a declaration that says, "My inner world does not matter, only yours does, and I will do whatever it takes to make your world comfortable, even if it means the complete and total annihilation of my own." Finally, and most poignantly, it is a form of self-soothing. The physical act of smiling, even when it is forced, can trigger the release of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. In an environment where there is no external source of comfort, the child learns to become their own physician. Their smile is a form of self-medication, a way of generating a small, internal dose of anesthetic to get them through an unbearable moment. It is a testament to the profound and almost unbelievable resilience of the human psyche, its ability to find a way to survive even in the most barren and hostile of emotional landscapes. But there is another kind of person who smiles through their challenges, a person whose smile comes not from a wound, but from a profound and terrifying strength. This is the person who is not just masking their pain, but is, in a very real sense, conquering it. This is the smile of the philosopher, of the warrior, of the master of the soul. This is the smile of the person who has looked into the abyss of the human condition and has not just survived the vision, but has found in it a source of profound and unshakable peace. And this is the smile of the Stoic. For the Stoic, the ultimate goal of a human life is to achieve a state of apatheia, of a calm, unshakable, and godlike tranquility. And the key to this state is the ruthless and unwavering application of what Epictetus called the dichotomy of control, the clear and absolute distinction between what is in our control and what is not. The only thing that is truly in our control is our own mind, our own judgments, our own choices. Everything else, our health, our wealth, our reputation, the actions of others, the events of the world, is entirely outside of our control. The person who cries and complains in the face of a challenge is a person who has not learned this lesson. They are a slave to the external world. Their inner peace is a fragile and precarious thing, utterly dependent on the world conforming to their desires, the challenge, the failure, the loss. These things are seen as a catastrophic and unjust violation. They are at war with reality, and it is a war they will always lose. The person who smiles through their challenges is the person who has chosen freedom. They have made a conscious and deliberate choice to refuse to hand over the keys to their own inner citadel to the fickle and often brutal whims of fortune. They understand that the challenge itself is not the source of their suffering. The challenge is a neutral, external event. The suffering comes from the judgment they make about the event, the story they tell themselves. And that story is the one thing that is entirely within their control. Their smile is not a denial of the difficulty of the situation. It is a profound and powerful statement of their own inner sovereignty. It is a quiet and defiant declaration that says, you, the external world, can do your worst. You can take my job, you can take my health, you can take my reputation, but you cannot touch my soul. You cannot control my response. And I choose to respond not with fear, not with anger, but with a calm, rational, and even cheerful acceptance. This is a form of psychological warfare against the tyranny of fate. It is the ultimate and most unfair of all advantages. The person who can smile in the face of a failure has already won because they have redefined victory. Victory is no longer the achievement of the external goal. Victory is the maintenance of their own internal tranquility. They have become, in the most literal sense, undefeatable. Their smile is the quiet and terrifying banner of a soul that has declared its own absolute and unconditional independence. We have now reached the most radical, the most powerful, and the most life-affirming of all the archetypes of the smiling warrior. This is the person whose smile is not a defense, and it is not a state of detached tranquility. It is an act of pure and ecstatic joy. This is the laughter of the person who has looked into the very heart of the suffering and the chaos of existence, and has not just accepted it, but has fallen in love with it. This is the smile of the person who the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would call the Übermensch, the overman. For Nietzsche, the modern world with its slave morality is a system that has taught us to see suffering as a mistake, as a sign that something has gone wrong, as a problem to be eliminated. We have become a culture that is pathologically obsessed with the pursuit of comfort, of safety, of a shallow and untroubled happiness. We have become, in his devastating term, a civilization of last men who desire nothing more than a long, pleasant, and utterly meaningless life. The Nietzschean soul, the independent mind, the person who is striving to become more than they are, sees this worldview with a profound and visceral contempt. They understand a deeper and more ancient truth, that suffering is not an obstacle to a great life. It is the very prerequisite for it. It is the resistance that builds the muscle of the soul. It is the hammer that forges the raw, chaotic, and amoral material of our nature into something hard, something beautiful, something worthy of the name of self. As Nietzsche famously wrote, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." The smile of this person, in the face of their own challenges, is the ultimate expression of this life-affirming philosophy. It is not a denial of the pain, it is a triumphant yes to it. It is the smile of the warrior who feels the enemy's blade in their side and smiles at the beautiful, terrible, and glorious intensity of the battle. It is the smile of the creator who looks at their own tormented and chaotic soul and sees not a problem to be solved, but the raw, magnificent material for a great work of art. This is the practice of amor fati, the love of one's fate. It is the ability to look at all of existence, the good and the bad, the joy and the pain, the triumph and the tragedy, and to not just accept it, but to will it, to love it, to want it to be exactly as it is for all eternity. The person who can do this, the person who can stand in the heart of their own suffering and smile, has achieved a form of freedom that is almost incomprehensible to the modern mind. They have not just overcome their pain, they have transfigured it. They have turned the greatest and most terrible of all human liabilities into the ultimate and most powerful of all human assets. They are no longer a victim of life, they are its co-creator. What then can we learn from these strange and often misunderstood figures, these people who smile in the face of their own challenges? They are not just psychological curiosities. They are a mirror. They are a profound and uncomfortable reflection of our own deep and terrified relationship with suffering. They show us how much we have come to fear the very thing that is the prerequisite for all our growth, all our wisdom, and all our strength. The path of the person who smiles through their challenges, whether it is the path of the survivor, the sage, or the overman, is the path of the smiling warrior. It is the path of the person who has, for whatever reason, been forced or has chosen to find a way to not just endure the terrible and unavoidable reality of human suffering, but to engage with it, to dance with it, and to ultimately transfigure it into a source of power, of meaning, and of a strange and terrible joy. The journey for the person who is trapped in the painful and compulsive smile of a primal wound is the journey of transforming that smile from an unconscious defense into a conscious choice. It is the work of healing the inner child who was never allowed to cry, of learning that it is safe to be vulnerable, and of finally arriving at a place where the smile is no longer an armor, but is one of a vast and beautiful array of authentic emotional responses to the world. And the journey for the rest of us, for the ones who have been taught to meet our pain with fear, with denial, with a desperate and frantic attempt to make it go away, is to have the immense courage to ask ourselves what we are so afraid of. What great and terrible treasures are we leaving undiscovered in the dark and unexplored caves of our own suffering? What profound and life-altering strength are we refusing to claim simply because it is on the other side of a pain we are not willing to feel? The person who smiles through their challenges has given us a great and terrible gift. They have shown us the possibility of a different kind of freedom, a freedom that is not found in the futile attempt to create a life without pain, but in the courageous and alchemical art of finding the meaning, the power, and even the joy in the heart of the pain itself. They have shown us that the ultimate form of resilience is not to build a fortress against the suffering of the world, but to build a soul that is so strong, so deep, and so whole that it can stand in the heart of the fire and smile, not because it does not feel the heat, but because it knows that it is the fire.